Your college football game day has come early.
Goes down the field for Sicky, goes up high. He's got get away from the top speed, and the ball is free. Woo! What a hit. You got barbecue back there.
From underdog triumphs to powerhouse showdowns, we've got your winning playbook covered. It's BetQL with Chris Mack, RJ Choppy, and John Martin, presented by BetMGM.
And welcome in. It's another Thursday night on the Odyssey Sports YouTube channel. Perhaps it's Friday night or Saturday morning on the BetQL network, or wherever and however you get us inside your Odyssey app. We appreciate you joining us here on BetQL alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack, and we've got to talk about the resumes. Just how clean are they of some of these teams that are looking at a prospective CFP arrival? And, well, we've got some pretty big games to preview as well. Maybe we get an opportunity to talk about the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. We got Ohio State heading to Madison. We've got Oklahoma, Kansas. We've got Oregon, Utah. But we've got to start the show today, gentlemen, talking about, despite the fact that they're on their bye week, everybody wants to talk about the Wolverines because they are in some steamy water. Their sign-stealing scandal, easy for me to say, has officially taken over the news cycle this week. John Harbaugh and the Wolverines could be in trouble. The latest seems to be, if I've kept up with it properly, is that Michigan football staffer Connor Stalions was buying tickets to games all over the Big Ten and beyond, and then sending folks to those games to videotape signals of the opposing sideline so that they could break them down for both future and possible future opponents. Whew, this could lead to Michigan getting in big trouble. Maybe not for this season specifically, but who knows how quickly this thing gets investigated and wrapped up. Let's start there with prospective punishments. RJ, just how should the NCAA, and to a lesser extent, the Big Ten, and maybe a larger extent, the College Football Playoff Committee, handle this as they take a look at what exactly Michigan did or did not know about what Connor Stalions was doing?
Well, if all the reports are true and everything is true that this was done, by the way, this guy's got quite the T-shirt business, it appears. From what you've seen from the Venmo receipts.
He's a piece of work, man. He's got a manifesto.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I've been trying to hawk these T-shirts over here myself, and I got 50,000 Twitter followers. I can't sell 5 of them. And this guy's just selling them left and right like this on his Venmo. I mean, good for him. But, I mean, if all this is true and the reports about, his salary is true, there's no way this dude's affording to go to all these sporting events without the University of Michigan kicking some money back at him. Like, if they knew about it, if the NCAA could find they know something about this, and I'm sure the College Football Playoff Committee will know, then, man, I mean, I don't know how any of these wins count right now, and I don't know how the College Playoff Committee can say any of these wins count. Now, Michigan honestly could come by and say, hey, look, guys, we played Ball State. We're fine. We would have won this game either way. But look, it's very – Jim Harbaugh couldn't beat Ohio State at all. And then in the last 2 years, Connor Stalions rolls around, and all of a sudden they don't lose.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I mean, what are we connecting here? How many dots do you need to connect? I come on now. I mean, we know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, that's a very real point here, John, that Michigan was Michigan, which is pretty good, but struggling to get past that Ohio State hurdle for a long time. And then all of a sudden, Michigan starts looking unbeatable, in particular this year. I mean, I mentioned resumes in the intro off the top here, but we can get into that later. But you look at prospective playoff teams, they're the only one really that has a perfectly clean resume. They might not have needed sign stealing to beat Ball State or to beat some of the other teams, but to really resoundingly thump teams the way they have through the first 7 weeks of the season, you could certainly make an argument that maybe they had a little bit of help in that. So Is this something that immediately affects Michigan this season, or do you think we're going to have to wait to see how everything shakes out and we're looking at something down the road and Jim Harbaugh, is long gone, maybe off to the Bears or wherever else, back to the NFL before Michigan really starts to see the impact of this thing?
Hey, RJ, you can tell the Steelers are back right, man. He's on NFL time right now, man.
Right.
They're back in the mix.
That's right, man.
Look, I mean, the wheels of NCAA bureaucracy turn ever so slowly. So this is not something that's going to impact this team today. They'll still get to, play for a championship and, get to the playoff and all of that. I think what it does probably accomplish, and this is a point that others have made, and we probably said it last week, it probably expedites the exit of Jim Harbaugh back to the NFL. There's going to be a lot of maybe intriguing jobs that come open. And I think he's clearly just willing to take a torch to it, right? He doesn't care. He's like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I will say this, like, my energy for the scandal itself is pretty low. I mean, it is possible. It is very much in the realm of possibility that stealing the signs and applying whatever they learn from the signs has made a big difference. And that coincides, as RJ points out, with the success of Michigan. But, I mean, dude, this is dumb as hell. If you could eliminate this by putting technology in these guys' helmets, right? Like, it's what the NFL does. You don't ever have to worry. This is not like you're going to a practice. This is not like you're going to a close practice. You're sneaking in it, in all hours of the night. Anybody can do this, right? Anybody can tape signs, a fan, whatever, and send it in. So I think what it really sort of illustrates and shows is how archaic some of these rules are and how stupid they are. With that said, there's still a clear violation here, and I suspect Michigan will ultimately have to pay the price for that in 2035.
Well, that's a really good point. It's stupidity that at this point in the year 2023, we don't have helmet speakers in the quarterback's ears, and we don't have headsets calling the plays in, and that you're not allowed, RJ brought it up last week when this first started to bubble to the surface, that you're not allowed to advance scout in person. Like, all that stuff is ridiculous and falls right in line with the perfect word that you used to describe it there, John, the archaic nature of the NCAA and their, I guess, judicial process, for lack of a better way to put it. But I do think there is a question. When you see Scallion standing on the sideline next to the defensive coordinator and next to Harbaugh, and you look down the scores on Michigan's schedule this year, and you see they haven't given up more than a single touchdown to any one opponent yet this year, and you go, okay, they wouldn't have, Harbaugh wouldn't be standing on the sideline with a chart that looks like a copy of hand signals, the American Sign Language chart, in with his play calling sheet, if it wasn't giving them some kind of advantage. And is it realistic to ask ourselves, well, again, maybe they haven't lost any of these first 8 games without the stolen signs, but maybe they've got a game here or there like Georgia has, or Florida State has, or Washington has, where they've had to struggle, and you go, okay, maybe the resume isn't so clean if they hadn't had this advantage.
Well, I would just say, if you gave the same intel, the same alpha, if Youngstown State sent a GA, right, to go steal some signs from Ohio State, they're not going to win the game. They're not going. They can have all the signs they want. They can have all the info. I mean, I'm sure Ohio State would let them come in and watch practice. It's not like it's going to. So I do think that while, and again, it is a violation, it is a rules thing, and they're going to have to pay the punishment. They still have to go out there and execute on both ends, right? They still have to have the players. They still have to be able to go out there and do it. So just having the signs is not going to be the difference, in my opinion, but it does create a quote-unquote unfair advantage, I suppose, if you want to go that route. And that's why I'm just saying, like, not anybody can get the signs and still win, right? Like, right. It's not the way that works. It does create a leg up, and again, that's why I think they'll have to face the music here. But it's not like, TCU could go do it, and all of a sudden they're going to beat Ohio State. Like, you got to have you got to have the dudes to pull that off as well.
Yeah, and that's the question, RJ, is how much did this actually affect the outcomes this year? And I guess the point, the greater point is, is this the difference between Michigan being the team that has to beat Ohio State and go 12-0, maybe 13-0 to get into the playoff, and Michigan being the team that can maybe get away with a loss to Ohio State or a loss in the Big Ten championship game because the rest of their results have been so dominant?
I mean, yeah, it might be the difference. I mean, but like at the end of the day, I mean, if the NCAA is that, hell-bent against cheating, which they probably are, the College Football Playoff Committee doesn't have to adhere to, I mean, they can make their own rules up if they want to, right? And if those people in the room, however many are in the room, and they're going to be here, and they're always here in Grapevine, Texas, right? Right down the street from me, doing this this little committee. They always meet. When they meet next week, are they looking at? I mean, do they have the same information that the NCAA Infractions Committee has? And they do, and I assume they're all looking at it. We are going to find out what they think of it, maybe week one. And as this thing progresses, and if more and more, dominoes start to fall, they could easily keep them out. And I wouldn't object to it. I mean, if they're truthfully doing this and they're winning games, now they're not winning games this year because of this, but they very well could beat Ohio State because of this. I mean, that's happened the last 2 years. If you want to look at the information, I mean, if I were them, I'd keep them out. I mean, it's kind of simple. I mean, you don't want to. That's the thing. It's not that it's like, it's not that it's a huge deal. It's that you can't give the other 117 schools the idea that you could do it and get away with it. Because if you don't do anything about it, and they win, and then 3 years down the road, the NCAA tries to come in with their stupid, hey, we'll just take the banner down from you. That doesn't matter. We all saw the championship. The championship happened. The fans had fun. It doesn't. The players had fun. They got the rings. I didn't get my ring back. So you take the banner down? Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. You're right. Retroactively, it's nonsense. I do think there's a question of, like, you can't quantify how much this helped them. Like, it may have helped them zero. They may be 8-0 with the same margin of victory in every single game to this point, but you don't know that. Even if it only helped them a touchdown here or a touchdown there or a couple of yards here or a couple of yards there, it's unquantifiable. And so that's why I think if you're the playoff committee, and who knows, the playoff committee probably has better information at hand than the NCAA, to be quite honest, given some of the people that have been a part of the playoff committee over the years and who take part in it. This could hang like the guillotine blade over Michigan's season, because there's already the question mark of, well, just what I said, how much did it help them? How do we quantify it? Can we quantify it? And if you're Michigan, the only way now to know for sure that it's not going to enter the process is to win out. That's it. You've got to beat Penn State. You've got to beat Ohio State. You've got to win the Big Ten championship game, and you've got to be 13-0 going into the final CFP committee meeting in order to know that it can't affect you. Because at that point, the playoff committee's got to look at it and say, well, it may have helped them, but it sure as hell didn't get them to 13-0. And that's the only way to keep it from, if it's unquantifiable, the only way to remove it from the equation is to not let it be a part of the equation to begin with and just beat everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say it didn't help them zero, because it kept happening, right? Like, we have, like, there was some sort of, but I point is well made. It's like, okay, did it help them like 1%? Did it help them like 10%? Did it help them? Again, I've never worked in a in a football organization, so I don't really know, how does this differ from what I'm going to see on film, right? Like, I do have access to film. So how much different is this than, we all see those damn idiots jumping up and down doing jumping jacks with Beyonce signs, and we all see that. I mean, how much does it really help? RJ's being a complete Harbaugh, Michigan hater, doesn't care about ratings. Of course he doesn't. It's Rangers Diamondbacks, right? Why was he going to start caring about ratings now?
Nobody cares. Nobody cares about ratings around here. No.
Michigan's getting in, pal, whether you like it or not.
Oh, if they lose to Ohio State, they might. Now look, they're probably going to get in. They might.
They
but,
might.
They're
But
beating Ohio State. We got the signs, bro.
This is a big question mark over their head right now. That's the catch here. This is the big question mark. Minus 185, the Wolverines to make the CFP. Ohio State even money, and Penn State way back there in the Big Ten at 14-1 to make the CFP. We will talk Big Ten as Ohio State is going to Madison with a 14.5-point spread hanging over that one. Oregon, Utah, as the Pac-12 continues to be chaotic, and Oklahoma, Kansas. We break down all three of those games, and before we wrap up, we get you our best bets as well, alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack, and this is BetQLU.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app. Let's get back to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM.
And welcome back in alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack. You are with us on the Odyssey Sports YouTube channel. If you're watching the show, we appreciate it. If you're listening inside your free Odyssey app, AUDACY, as mentioned, it's free. Download it today. Take us with you and listen to the show whenever you feel like. Could be Friday night, could be Saturday morning, could be any time in between or around those times. We've got you covered, and we will preview Oregon, Utah in just a moment. Ohio State, Wisconsin. After that, our best bets of the week on the way as well for week 8 of the college football season in the Big 12, guys. Texas dealing with a Quinn Ewers absence, which could open up the top of the Big 12. I don't know. I look at the rest of their schedule and I question that, but the team they're trying to chase after losing to them in the Red River rivalry is playing Kansas. It's on the road for the Sooners. Number 6 Sooners at the Kansas Jayhawks. A 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central kick on Saturday. Sooners are 5-1 against the spread. Kansas has gone over in 4 of their 7 games this season, a push thrown in as well. Let's start with the game itself. Oklahoma laying 9.5, total at 65.5, before we get into a conversation about the Sooners and the CFP. Choppy, Sooners laying 9.5 at the Jayhawks. It feels like it's the soon-to-be SEC pair and then everybody else in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're clearly the class of the conference. And Oklahoma, I gotta give Brent Venables a lot of credit. I hated the hire. I thought it was terrible in today's day and age to hire a defensive coach, but he's done well there. He's done a nice job at Oklahoma this year. They've had a really good season. This game, I don't know. I don't have a great feel in this game. Kansas is one of those weird teams. Like, I could easily see them making this a competitive contest. I could also see Oklahoma going in there and winning this one like 28-10. I could easily see both things happening. So it's a big time stay away from me. I still like Oklahoma as if they wind up winning out, and that's going to be tough because they're going to have to play Texas again most likely. But I don't see how you keep them out of the Final Four. You generally don't. That's a big name on the front of that jersey. And like that matters. That matters to the committee. Ask Texas Tech, ask Baylor, ask TCU, have been in those positions in the past 15 years or so where, if they had Oklahoma or Texas on the front of their jersey, they're in. You don't keep Oklahoma out. They don't get left out of things.
Yeah, especially if they get a second win over the Longhorns. John, there's not a lot outside of that's impressive about the Sooners' resume. A struggle against Cincinnati a few weeks ago, granted on the road, a struggle against UCF, but there is something that's clicked this year for Oklahoma. I was like RJ a year ago and kind of left the Sooners for dead and left Brett Venables for dead. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's Dylan Gabriel being healthy, whatever it is. And I like him as a dark horse Heisman candidate now, too, because that market seems to have completely opened up, J.J. McCarthy aside. Oklahoma on the whole, I think if they can roll through the rest of their schedule, they're a CFP team. That's obviously a big if with Texas sitting there at the end in the Big 12 championship game, presumably. But this week specifically, Kansas, 9.5. I want to say I like that, but to my point I just made about struggles against Cincinnati and UCF, I don't know if I trust Oklahoma to really put them away.
Yeah. Plus, you have, it's not Jalen Daniels yet again. It's going to be Jason Bean at quarterback most likely. I do have there are some people that I respect that like Kansas and that did play Kansas at 10 because they are a different team at home. I mean, if you just sort of look at their splits, they've been a lot better at home. They covered the number against BYU. Away from home, they beat the crap out of UCF 51-22 away from home. Totally different, as most teams are in college, right? As most teams are in college football. But yeah, for me, I can't really back a backup quarterback here, even though it is at home. It's one of those games. It's one of those things where it's like I think we're getting into the part of the season now where you have to pick your spots a little more carefully because you're getting into conference games. It's just all a little bit tighter. So this is not a game that I would, be targeting this weekend. To me, the only way I could look is Kansas, and I just don't really. I'm not in the mood to back a backup quarterback, against Oklahoma. So it's a stay off for me. But if you force me to do it, I would just take the points there at 9.5. But it just feels to me like the value is gone from this one at 9.5.
What about Oklahoma to make the CFP at 145 plus 145?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's actually some steam that came in on that this week, accompanied by the Heisman for Dylan Gabriel. I think both of those bets took some real respected money, and I think there's a good reason for that. I mean, Oklahoma has taken care of business. I mean, Dylan Gabriel has certainly proven himself to be one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in football, and we're talking about a year where Caleb Williams, he's out of the discussion. You know, the main competition, it feels like right now, is going to be Penix. And, you know, in the Pac-12, you know, do you really expect them to get through unscathed? Oklahoma's done its job. They beat Texas in the regular season. You know, can Washington be expected to do that week in and week out? You know, that's going to be a real question for me. So I understand it. I respect it. I think Oklahoma's in a really good spot.
Yeah, speaking of the Pac-12, it takes us to our next game where it feels like we've reached that point in the year we reach at some point late October, early November every year in the Pac-12, which is let's all eliminate each other and our entire conference from any kind of CFP conversation, because that's really the point we've reached. Washington was this close last week. They held on. Oregon, Utah this weekend, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Number 8 Ducks at the number 13 ranked Utes. 6.5 is the spread on this. The Ducks are favored. Total's 48.5, which is pretty low historically for any kind of Oregon Ducks game. But it's Utah. It's the Utes defense. And this is sort of a win or go home game as far as Pac-12 title game hopes are considered, as far as CFP hopes are considered. And Oregon's defense, I think, is really impressive. So this is a couple of really quality defenses. I remember saying way back early in the year, if it's any game that doesn't involve Utah or Oregon State, I'll take the over. This one does involve Utah, but I think we've come to see here, RJ, that you can't predict the Pac-12 really the rest of the way out. My best bet is going to be on this game. I'll leave it for the end of the show, but Oregon laying 6.5 at Utah. How do you read this one?
Man, there's obviously the road bow factor, but
right.
I mean, I just don't know how, like, Oregon's defense is good enough. I don't know how Utah can hang. I don't know how they can keep up with Oregon's offense. That to me is, I don't know how they can do that. So I like Oregon in this game. I like them by maybe 9 or 10 points. I know it's a tough spot for them to be in. I know Utah is a scrappy team, but their quarterback situation's kind of a mess. And then you look at their last week with US. I mean, USC's a mess too, and USC's defense is a mess. So it's like, all right, I'm kind of on the Oregon trail. I'm on the Oregon side here.
You're on the Oregon trail. You have died from cholera and dysentery. Dated reference for anybody over the age of 40 that played video games in their school's computer lab. I said 48.5 on the total, John. This thing's actually down to 47.5 as it sits now. It's moved throughout the week. And Choppy mentioned home road Bo, that split. This will be Bo Nix's 45th start, I think, as a college quarterback, which will tie the record or set the record after his starts as a freshman at Auburn and the transfer to Oregon. That kind of feeds into this for me. And looking at the under as it continues to come down, it's why I've teased it to it enough, but my best bet will be on this game. I'll leave it for the end of the show, as I mentioned, but the Pac-12 has come around to not only knock each other out of the conversation season for the CFP, but also completely surprise everybody and maybe be more about defense kind of season.
Yeah, and I think that's one where it favors the home team. I watched the whole game last week against USC, and I know that, USC's defense was definitely, the story there in terms of letting Utah do whatever it wanted to. But there were a lot of possessions there where USC, whether it was turnover or just not been able to move the sticks. Like Utah's defense stood tall against, I don't know if he's the number one pick in the NFL draft anymore. I mean, I certainly think we're having a discussion about that now. But I think Utah's defense deserves a lot of respect. And they're doing this without Cam Rising, which is kind of crazy to me. Like to have gotten this far into the season and to be as good as they are without their star quarterback, it's like, damn, if they'd had him, how are we talking about a playoff team? I really think we are. So, look, I think what you worry about a little bit is just the hangover, but I think their coach, Kyle Willingham, is one of the best and under discussed in all of college football. Like he has his team prepared every single week. Doesn't matter who's starting at quarterback, and his defense is good. His defense just gets the job done in that league. So, I can't lay road chalk here with Oregon. Again, it's a value thing with Utah. I don't know if there's much at 6.5. I would not be shocked at all if Utah wins this game outright at home.
Money line Utah 2-1 plus 200. Oregon minus 250. Of the 13 combined games these two teams have played to this point, only 4 have gone over the total. 2 each. Oregon 2 out of their 6. Utah 2 out of their 7. So. Definitely trends pointing in the under direction, given everything we've talked about. But again, it's the Pac-12. It's chaotic. It's impossible, seemingly, to predict. Saturday night, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, Madison, Wisconsin. The Badgers hosting the number 3 Ohio State Buckeyes. Is this a letdown spot for the Buckeyes? I think that's a good question. It's hard to say it's a letdown going into Madison because of the atmosphere, because it's a Big Ten game. It's always a quality game between these two. But as I look at it, this thing is set up to entice you to bet on Wisconsin and then Ohio State. And I'm much more impressed by Kyle McCord after last week's game. Maybe as much because he's got Marvin Harrison at his disposal as anything else. But nonetheless, he's still got him at his disposal. And he took care of a really good Penn State secondary. Sure, with the help of Penn State's play calling on the other side of the ball, which was atrocious. Mike Yurcich should be looking for a new job at the end of this season. But Kyle McCord and Ohio State took care of business against Penn State. They got a few weeks until Michigan. Is this maybe a letdown spot going to Madison? 14.5 tells me that they won't let down because the books are setting this up to entice you into betting on Wisconsin, John. This is, please, yes, come. Give us your Badger money. By all means, 2 touchdowns and a hook. Come on in. It's nice and warm in here. And then, of course, everybody bets on Wisconsin and Ohio State wins by 17. Yeah,
Wisconsin is boiled hot dog water. They're abysmal. There's not really a number that I would get. 28.5 is where you could start to get me interested in this. Wisconsin sucks. I mean, it took an 18-point fourth quarter for them to cover the number on the road. And I know, but before that, they had 7 points and a half against Illinois. I just don't think there's much of a chance here for Ohio State to be let. I think they got through the toughest part of their schedule to that point, but I still think they're going to be pretty focused going into this one. It's just there's not a lot of firepower. I'm not worried. I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, they're saying, okay, well, here's the hook. How juicy is that? 2 touchdowns. Yeah, Ohio State's way better than this team. Wisconsin's bad. Home, road, Anchorage, Alaska, doesn't matter. Ohio State's going to win this game. They're going to do so comfortably.
43.5, I think, is the total on this. Choppy, super low. Look, you can tell me all you want about how Penn State lost rather than Ohio State won last week, and I can get on board with that to a great extent. To John's point, this is not a good Wisconsin team.
Dude, they lost a game. They lost a game where the other quarterback threw for 37 yards. They're awful.
Yep.
This is I will never understand the media's. I'm going to call it a fetish. It's a fetish with Wisconsin football. That stupid jump around, the dumbest thing ever. Like, just if your tradition is coming up with a pregame song on a audio track from a band that wore Celtic jerseys in the 90s, and that's your tradition, that's a bad tradition. All right, it's up there with South Carolina's, let's do some dubstep, and it's up there with Virginia Tech's, whatever the hell they have to start their thing. their game. Those are awful traditions, man. And Wisconsin sucks. They're awful. I mean, boiled hot water is a great way to say it. They're awful. I will take Ohio State all day. If Ohio State is not the number one team in the nation when the College Playoff Committee's first rankings come out, they haven't paid attention. They're the only. They have the same resume. The reason Tennessee was number one last year to start is because they had quality wins. A quality win over Bama, quality win over LSU. They were the only team that did that. And then the same thing goes here. They are the only team that's got 2 top 10 wins. Like, how does anybody not have them number one? They beat Notre Dame.
Always comes back to Tennessee with RJ. Always comes back to Tennessee somehow.
They beat Notre Dame and they beat Penn State. Like, that's it. They're number one.
Yeah.
Like, the disrespect on Ohio State this year, and I hate Ohio State, from their oversized, stupid numbers to the stadium. Like, I hate everything about them. But you got to be number one. They got to be number one.
Yeah.
And they're disrespected in Vegas. 14.5 for this game? Are you kidding me? It'll be 14.5 by the end of the first.
Speaking of resumes and what things look like if you're the CFP committee, we get into some of those resumes in a couple of minutes. And, well, what do we think of them? Because there's not a team that doesn't have at least one ugly win or something on their resume to question. Plus, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. We touch on that as well. And our best bets all on the way alongside John Martin and RJ Choppy. I'm Chris Mack. This is BetQLU.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app. Let's get back to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM.
And welcome back in alongside RJ Choppy and John Martin. I'm Chris Mack, and you are locked into BetQLU, our best bets to wrap up the show in just a couple of minutes. And what do we think of some of the resumes at the top of the Power 5 conferences that'll be considered by the CFP when their first set of rankings come out? We brought it up for just a moment when talking about Michigan and the sign-stealing scandal at may or may not have some kind of effect, obviously, on how they've started very strong. But what do we make of the world's largest outdoor cocktail party? And I'm not talking about handicapping the game. Yeah, that's all well and good. Georgia, Florida. Oh, okay, wonderful. I'm talking more about the idea, and I guess, are we still allowed to call it by this name? I don't know. I don't care. It's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. That's what it'll always be when they get together, Florida and Georgia down in Jacksonville. This has to be the best named, the most aptly named game of any of the named games in college football. Like the Red River rivalry, okay, I get it. That's the Red River that separates Texas and Oklahoma. It's geographically accurate. That's wonderful. The Egg Bowl, the Iron Bowl, the Holy War, the Civil War, the Backyard Brawl, those are all great names for games. But other than maybe Bedlam, which usually, more often than not, at least over the last 10, 15 years, has been Bedlam, I don't think anything beats, John, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
I mean, Battle for the Bones, Memphis UAB, one of the most storied rivalries in all of college sport.
Man, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Always back to the AAC with this man. Always.
Hey, man, I tell you what, I mean, I kind of feel like Birmingham's not in the discussion for barbecue. Kind of feel like they inserted themselves, and I don't really think I don't think they belong. I mean, we start talking about the sort of titans of the heavyweights of barbecue. You have Texas, you have Memphis, you have Kansas City, you have Charlotte,
Carolina.
I mean, I just don't really think Birmingham is in that. I don't think they're in that group. So, I mean, I know we've called it that, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a reach here. I don't know if you have the same, because you're in a very proud, part of the world when it comes to barbecue, RJ. I don't know if are you okay with Birmingham considering itself a barbecue spot?
I'm fine with that, man. Look, I mean, I like all kinds of food. I like all kinds of barbecue. I put mustard on my brisket. I'm not ashamed to say it. I go straight Frenches on that thing, man. I don't mind to say that at all. I'm not going to put ketchup. I won't go ketchup. But you throw a slab of brisket in front of me, and you put some Frenches in there. It won't be long before I slather that bad boy in there.
Oh, yeah, wow. But I would say, yeah. World's largest. I'm trying to think. Like, does USC, UCLA? Do they have one or no? They don't have a name.
I don't think they even have a name. They're LA. They're too cool to have a name for their game.
Battle for Compton, something like that. I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. You're right. Yeah. How'd I forget that?
Battle for Compton.
That's what it was.
Okay, yeah.
I
think I'd roll with you here. I'd roll with world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
Solid, man. I mean, the Red River Shootout was a good name. Then the PC police came in. They'd stopped that one. Now it's a Red River rivalry or showdown or some crap like that, and it just ain't the same anymore.
Yeah,
Egg Bowl doesn't make any sense. It's a great game, but doesn't make any sense in terms of the name.
Nah, Civil War. Civil War ain't bad.
Holy War is not
Oregon
bad,
State.
But like you said, the PC police have come along and eliminated a lot of these names.
Civil War. Who is Civil War again?
And then Oregon State.
Oregon State. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Holy War. There's a couple of them. There's BYU, Utah. Yeah. There's Notre Dame, BC.
Yeah.
The Big Ten ones they don't have names. It's just we're playing for some obscure trophy. Like it's Paul Bunyan's
Floyd Roseville, man.
Yeah, Floyd. So the world's largest outdoor cocktail party fits though. Everybody goes. They're all tuned up by noon, and nobody really remembers the game. And it doesn't matter because it's usually one team is really good and the other one is just kind of middling or somewhere, and everybody just has a good time. And that's what it's supposed to be. So that's why I appreciate it, I think, more than anything else. We were going down the path of talking resumes for playoff contenders earlier when the whole Michigan sign stealing scandal came up. And it just looking at it, you can see now Michigan's the only team of prospective playoff teams right now that has a perfectly clean resume, really. Like, there are undefeated teams, but they've got wins that you look at and go, I don't know, that one's kind of shaky. You know, Florida State has they've got, I'm trying to remember which ones were kind of, you know, they go to OT against Clemson, and Clemson isn't much to write home about this year. They beat a Riley Leonard-less Duke team. You can, like I said earlier, Washington struggled last week. In the Big 12, Oklahoma has had their issues against UCF and Cincinnati. I'm trying to think who I'm forgetting. Georgia has had their issues at times this year in first halves. So there's not a team out there that is a CFP contender other than maybe Michigan that you can look at and say, oh, yeah, like their resume is perfect. So I guess how much do we think the committee's going to consider this, Choppy, when they first sit down around the corner from your house in a couple weeks here?
I mean, look, they better consider everything, right? I mean, that's what their job is. They got to consider everything. They got to consider how teams have played. They got to consider injuries. They got to consider sign stealing. This is their job. Like, if they're not considering all of these things, why are they wasting money on a $300 a night room? You know, there are plenty of other places you can go to. Like, go to a Motel 6. If you're not going to account for everything here, man, if you're not going to take a look at everything, what are you even doing?
I like the idea of them being at like a roadway inn, John, where you've got the external room doors and the AC unit and the wall that you got to bang on to get it to work. And, you know, you don't know who that dude is out in the parking lot smoking a cigarette, but you're pretty sure he's not staying in a room. He's just there to exchange some goods and services.
Yeah. Who is that in these scenario? Who is that?
I don't know. Probably a Big Ten commissioner of some sort.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I agree with what RJ was saying earlier. I mean, Ohio. I mean, I know Michigan's been doing it with margin, but Ohio State's been actually beating real teams, and it's like nobody's fault. Like, it's not Georgia's fault that, you know, they're beating whoever they're in front of. Like, and they happen to not be, like, it's a little bit of a down year, right, in the SEC. You can't really control what happens to the teams after you play them, but right. I would say, you know, who I'm like, you know, in terms of strength of schedule and like actual results, I would say I'm most impressed with Ohio State. Doesn't mean I think they're the best team. But I think it does sort of go to RJ's point. It's like, we have to be okay with mixing these rankings up, even though you didn't lose. You know, at some point it does matter who you did or did not beat. And so do I think that will happen? No, I don't think that's right, though. I don't think that's the appropriate way to rank these teams. So we'll see.
Yeah, I just think I'm glad you mentioned Ohio State, because I didn't mention them off the top. They are right there with Michigan as having as close to a perfect resume as you can have. I just wonder, and look, the CFP, you can't convince me they don't set things up so that the future games will then eliminate teams from where they are ranked based on how they rank them. Like, if we get through the first set of rankings and it's Michigan 1, Ohio State 2, everybody in the SEC is going to freak out because Georgia's 3, and it's going to be like, well, just wait. One of these two teams is going to eliminate the other one. Relax. You're still in an okay spot. And to be quite honest, it'll make sense to me as well because of resumes and because, you know, Georgia, like, if it goes Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, Florida State, I'm not going to freak out because, A, somebody will eliminate somebody else along the way, and B, that kind of lines up with the results we've seen on the field to this point.
Look, I mean, a lot of these results have to line up. They have to line up with what's on the field. If they don't, that becomes a major problem. But if you look at a team like, you know, Ohio State, who's had 2 good wins, you look at a team like Georgia, who has struggled at the half with a couple of teams in back-to-back weeks. You know, and then there's an injury with Bowers. These have to play into it. You know, and I mean, if they don't factor in all that stuff, they don't factor in who you've beat. Because I always thought the committee said it's better to play a tough schedule. You know, we're not going to kill you for losses. We're going to credit you for good wins. And that's what they should be doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. You've got to consider who you're beating and how you're beating them. All right, time for our best bets. But before we wrap up here on BetQLU, I told you I'm leaning towards that Pac-12, that big Pac-12 matchup between Oregon and Utah. We'll get to that in a moment. But Choppy, what do you got for us?
I will take that Ohio State minus 14.5. But I've got a little parlay for you. This is a small one. It's $10. Kansas money line, Georgia Tech money line, Northwestern money line, Utah money line, Wake Forest money line. Okay, they play Florida State. Arizona State money line, Rice money line, and Cal money line. Now,
Rice.
A $10 bet will win you $1.04 million. My account wouldn't let me do that. I could only go up to $500,000, so I bet $4.81. So I was able to bet $4.81 to win a cool $500,000. So there you go. Mark that down.
I will write that down and be sure to not play.
Chaos parlay. Yeah.
Anything that involves Rice and Northwestern, I'm pretty sure I'm out on, but I hope it works out for you, man. I do.
You never know, man. You never know.
John, what do you got for us for best bet this week?
It's the game of the week. We're going to Choppy's neck of the woods. We're going to Denton, Texas, where Memphis coming in against the Mean Green, who don't, who are not that mean. They're actually very inviting, and so we're going to lay the 7.5 with Memphis here. I actually like their quarterback, Chandler Rogers, I think is his name. But I just don't think that North Texas will be able to consistently stop the Memphis run game. They've been dominated. I mean, Cal beat them 58-21 at home at the beginning of the season. I know it was a different QB, but you can run on this team, and that's really where Memphis has thrived recently. Navy beat them, rolled up a ton of rushing yards on them, like 250 plus. I think Memphis gets a lot of offense going with Blake Watson there on the ground game, and they're able to cover this number at 7.5. North Texas has no home field advantage. I have this closer to 11 than 7.5, so I have at Memphis minus 7.5.
Man, disparaging to the Mean Green of North Texas.
Very, very nice folks, very welcoming.
My best bet, very welcoming. My best bet, I teased a couple times throughout the show. It's Oregon, Utah under the 47.5. Two really good defenses. Like I said, combined 13 games played between the two teams. Only 4 times have they gone over the total. The only times the Oregon defense has really looked vulnerable this year, actually only once. Texas Tech, but we talked about Road Bo keeping the Red Raiders in that game. And then, of course, the Washington game also on the road. This one on the road at Utah, but we all know Utah involved. It'll be a defense first kind of game. So give me the under on Utah and Oregon. Thanks again. We appreciate all of you watching on the Odyssey Sports YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening inside your Odyssey app and at BetQL.com. Thanks to producer Zach. Thanks to RJ Choppy. Thanks to John Martin. I am Chris Mack, and this has been another stellar edition of BetQLU.
You've been listening to BetQLU, presented by BetMGM. If you missed any of the show, listen back anytime on the new and improved Odyssey app.